No, it's awesome.
No, that's like, I'll tell you one that was funny was, I might have told you this, Jimmy, when I met Corey Glover to do the Ultraphonics, well, I had met Corey originally at Rocklahoma. My band was playing Rocklahoma and Living Color was playing, and they were the best band at the whole thing, no questions asked. They destroyed, and the tragedy was they played Friday afternoon at like 5 in the afternoon, but they were the best band. Everybody knew it. Anyway, but I walked up to him backstage and I said, hey man, I never do this, but and this is in like 2009, and I said, listen, I never do this, but I saw you perform as Jesus, as Brutus in Jesus Christ Superstar at the Cerritos Performing Arts Center 6 months ago. And I said, I saw Carl Anderson do it in 1994, and I wanted you to know that you really did justice to that role. And he like gave me the biggest hug. He's like, oh my God, that's the greatest compliment ever, you know, and we ended up exchanging numbers, and he was like super cool. And I saw him with Galactic in Orange County years later, like a few years later. And I go, I don't know if you remember this, but I met you. And he goes, oh, I totally remember. He goes, look, Living Color is doing the 25-year anniversary of Vivid. I want you to come to the show. So here's my number. Text me, and I'll put you and whoever you want on the list. And it was like fucking amazing. Okay. But anyway, so then when Corey and I reconnected through Ultraphonics, I'm like, I don't know if you remember this. He goes, dude, I remember you, of course, you know. So I laughed and I go, I'm gonna fanboy out, okay? And we're going to In-N-Out to get burgers, right? Like he's like, I gotta go to In-N-Out, you know, get my thing. And I'm like, all right, but you just let me fanboy out as we're driving. He's like, all right. And I go, look, man, I wore out the cassette of Vivid to the point where I had to buy the CD because it wouldn't play in my car. And he goes, amazing, yeah. Right? And he goes, yeah, okay. That's all you need to say. And I go, thanks. And then like, now we can move on and be friends. But you have to have that moment with a guy like Wizard or Doug Pinnick or somebody where you just go, look, man, you don't even know like what you have done to my life, like how much of an impact you've had. And Doug is one of those cats where you have to kind of lay that out because fuck, man. Going back to Vic Johnson, Vic said the two biggest bands that should have made it, that's tragic that they didn't, were King's X and Fishbone.
Yeah.
We said that a couple weeks ago. I was like, why were they huge? Especially now, going back, 30 plus years, listening to those cassettes and stuff. I was going through all my stuff.
Fishbone.
Freaking phenomenal.
On Lollapalooza, Fishbone was the most feared band on that tour. And that's coming from a lot of cats that played there. But like Mike Inez from Alice in Chains, the bass player, was like, we didn't want to follow them because they were so good, and they would have such an impact on the crowd that no one could summon that kind of energy.
Well, we did Fishbone at the Sofa Street Fair when I started doing Sofa Street Fair.
I remember that. Yeah.
And there's a couple of great shots. I'll find the shots and I'll post them to Facebook again. But dude, the city of San Jose lost its collective mind when they hit the stage. It was like, people had forgotten the energy that band had, and they were like, you know, they kind of like treaded the line between punk to funk, you know, and it was like, and it was a crossover thing. It's like, you know, on top of that, the fact that, you know, it's like all of us have stories where we've connected with artists where we have to be fanboys and stuff like that. And that's the beauty of the music industry, is like those of us who really believe are like, it's not about the business, it's about that community and that experience and that emotion, because the soundtrack of our lives have been these great bands, you know?
Absolutely. Oh, so Alexis, to answer your question, so the other people on the call that you don't know, Doug Hurrah, he used to live in the Bay Area. He lives in LA, phenomenal guitarist. Doug, are you still there? Did you want to?
I'm still here, yes.
So, Doug, when you were in the Bay Area, which bands were you in?
The only one anybody would have ever heard of was X-Men, but it was kind of towards the end where, you know.
What were the other bands called? Because I mostly like the bands that nobody ever heard of.
Oh,
I think we're probably about the same age.
yeah, probably up there. Really, that's the only band that did anything that I was affiliated with. But I moved to LA, and since I toured with this band called Faith in the Muse goth band.
Sure, I like them a lot.
Oh, nice, yeah.
I think you even played the show with me. You played the Trocadero once, yeah?
I wasn't in the band at the time, but I did the DNA Lounge with Faith in the Muse.
Well, was it in 2000 to 2008?
It was actually right around 2008.
Yeah, so I might have booked that show.
Oh, crazy. Yeah. So you know William pretty well, then, I take it.
I'm not. I don't know that I would have dealt with the agent, whoever the agent was.
Well, it would have been either, most likely William Faith.
The name's familiar, but
yeah. But anyway, yeah, no. So that's those are the only things you probably might have heard of.
And X-Men Soldier played a lot of shows with you guys. I was in Soldier at the time.
Right, yeah, no, I remember playing with you at maybe the Stone, one of the Navy clubs. But, yeah. No, but I kind of was in it towards the end where the band changed direction and eventually changed names. But it was fun, to be.
Oh, Faith in the Muse played with Jill Tracy, the piano player. She's amazing at DNA.
Who did? I'm sorry.
I'm just looking up in the archives over at DNA Lounge, and I'm seeing that when Faith in the Muse played at DNA Lounge, they played with Jill Tracy, who's an amazing piano player.
Oh, right.
And also Sunshine Blind.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I believe it was Sunshine Blind when I played with them.
And I'm looking. Okay, no, the picture here is not Faith in the Muse. Okay, there's lots of pictures of you guys. What instrument do you play? You're a guitar player?
Yeah.
I'm seeing if I can find you here.
I got shows they played there, it was one. So.
Well, I've got a girl playing a red bass with a spiky mohawk.
That might be Marcia.
And did you have a mohawk?
No, I didn't have a mohawk.
Okay, this is a electric cello player you guys had.
Yeah, Marcia, yeah.
Very cool. I wish I could can I send a link to these photos to the group?
Yeah, in the chat.
Let me do that because there's some cool photos. I'm not sure that this is a show that you were in the band at the time.
No, I didn't play with Marcia, but I did some shows with her when she was with a different band.
Let's see if I can find some other Faith in the Muse. Oh, you guys play with New Model Army? Were you on tour with New Model Army?
No.
One of my favorite bands.
Can I just say that this is amazing?
So many shows. You guys, they play with Clairvoyant?
And Clank is my spirit animal.
Yep. Clank rules.
Because of the beard.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah, dude, totally, man. That's what I'm aiming
Electric Light
for.
Orchestra shirt because that brings everyone to the yard. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, Doug. Doug, did you play the Stone with X-Men? I'm just trying to remember when I saw you.
Yeah, we did all the Navy clubs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mark and I actually met at a bar.
Yeah, it was funny because I was like, there's no Asian dudes like playing in those bands. It's out aside from like Loudness, but they're not from here. So I saw Doug on the 71 bus and I was like, oh, I got to talk to this guy. So funny. So that's how God, that was a long time ago. So we used to live in the same neighborhood. So we took that bus. So it was like, hey, don't you play in a band? Like I saw you at the Stone. So it was like one of the Asian metal power, like.
Let's not talk about Tsunami now. Come on.
Glad somebody remembers them.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, one last question trying to identify you here. Would you have been wearing black sunglasses and a black suit?
That's William.
That's William. That's not you.
Doug.
No.
Doug.
Yeah, I'm looking. There's so many shows. Your band played DNA Lounge so many times. You must have I think there was a manager at DNA named David King from Death Field that I think was a fan, and so I think you guys got booked a lot.
Okay. Do you know Kat Morgan?
Kat Morgan?
Kat Morgan?
I'm not sure.
Oh, I think she kind of had a hand in bringing them into the DNA, so she might have been a friend.
That's funny. I love how Alexis, within like a minute, it's like, let me go through the archives of the DNA Lounge.
Yeah, that's
Mark did
right.
a really great job of
That's awesome.
documenting everything. Every show was webcast.
Wow.
He had photographers out at every show. He's just
Nice.
he's kept everything on that website.
Right? Oh, awesome. Oh, I can't wait to dig into that. Okay, thank you for sending that.
One for the group, and especially Jimmy. Do you guys remember a band called Splendor? Jimmy?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you remember the band called Splendor?
Kinda. Were you in Splendor?
No, but they're one of my favorite bands. Same kind of thing, like unsung, amazing, holy fucking shit. 2 great records, but their initial record was produced by Todd Rundgren, and this is like, this is like 20 years ago, but they were holy shit good, dude.
Todd.
I met Todd 2 years ago. He played the Wiltern, and we were in the. I was able to get backstage and say hi to him, and we were shooting the shit. And I go, man, I have to just give you props for producing one of my favorite records of all time, Splendor. And he goes, oh my God. He goes, those guys should have been huge. What the fuck happened? And I go, I know. I saw them at House of Blues on Sunset, and they should have been fucking amazing. And Wayman Boone was the singer, played guitar and sang.
Yeah.
And they were unbelievable live. Oh my God. And such a great record, such great songwriting, everything. And I don't know what happened. They signed a record deal with J Records, which is Clive Davis's label, the year after. And when I saw them, they were going to do their second record. And he's like, yeah, we'll see you in a few months, when they walked off stage, and then they just disappeared. But Wayman is now like a film director and has a studio in like Hollywood, and he's doing like kind of film shit, but he doesn't play music anymore, and it's a tragedy, man.
But by the way, I have a great Todd Rundgren story.
Okay,
So
good.
I worked him many times at the Edge, as you may know, and we did Utopia at the One Step Beyond.
Fuck.
People flew in from Japan. It was craziness.
They're so good live, dude. Holy shit.
So a month before Todd played the Edge, we had Terrence Trent D'Arby at the venue.
Okay.
So good.
So Terrence Trent, of course, Terrence Trent D'Arby. So Terrence Trent D'Arby walks into the venue and sees the flyers up for Todd and goes, I need to talk to the house manager, talent buyer, whatever.
Okay.
So I go backstage, and Terrence is all, I got to get something off the bus and show it to you. I want you to give this to Todd. So he goes on the bus, and he gets his first record on CD, and he opens up the book, and he goes, his very first listing of special thanks was Todd Rundgren for the inspiration. So he puts the CD in my hand, writes his number on the phone on a piece of paper, puts it in the CD box, and says, please give this to Todd. So a month later, Todd comes to play the venue, and I roll backstage, and I said, hey, by the way, Terrence Trent D'Arby wanted me to show you something. So I open up the CD booklet, pull out the number, pull out the booklet, show him that, and he's all, oh my God, I'm a huge Terrence Trent D'Arby fan. And they connected after that.
Fuck.
I was like a speck on that meeting, and I was just like, this is the most amazing thing to see two artists kind of like fangirl out on each other. It's
right.
Amazing.
Those first 2 albums were really good, and then he released some more stuff, and I tried to get back into them. And well, I could just say those 2 first albums were just amazing.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
Didn't he end up like changing his name or something like that afterwards?
yeah, he ended up becoming he changed his name and got all into a spiritual thing that was different. But we have that live we have the recording of Terrence Trent D'Arby at the Edge on DAT tape.
Oh, wow.
He allowed us to record it, and my buddy Reese is now in the process of dumping all of these files, the UFO, Seven Nights, Simple Minds, all these bands. We're dumping them all to digital files, and we're trying to find a way to release them without getting into trouble, or at least parking them on Google Drive for our friends to download. But the funny thing about Terrence was he had a
Jimmy, sorry, Jimmy, give me 2 seconds. Hit me up for that too. I can help you on that one.
Oh, okay.
Without anyone knowing.
Yeah, I want to release those songs. I mean, we have like 60 to 70.
Oh, no. I can't destroy the flow you were on. I'm sorry. I just meant to say
no,
hit me up on that, and please continue, because I was totally enthralled.
This dressing room wardrobe girl that came in at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, and she basically turned the whole backstage of the Edge, which the Edge dressing room was rather large, not as big as the Omnis, but big, into Terrence Trent D'Arby's lounge. Persian rugs, candle boxes, just shit everywhere. And I rolled backstage, and there's draperies hanging from the ceiling and stuff. So when he rolled in, it was like it was his house. It was crazy.
Well, that's my rider, because usually my trailer is set up like that. So.
It's funny that you. It's funny. I'm sorry. It's funny that you said that, because I don't have experience with musicians backstage. But when I saw King Diamond at the Warfield, and I paid, I got his autograph and everything, I was like super excited. But he had like this carpet that was rolled out and some other shit, and I'm like, this is fucking true. Musicians do this shit. It's like count all the. I only want 1,000 brown M&Ms or whatever. It's like, what the hell?
Was that
I swear to God, I'm not shitting you, dude. If there's too many people in the dressing room, I will change in the fucking parking lot between two doors, like the front and back doors of a car, like backed against the fucking wall, because I just go, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it here, because
are you doing it because you're in annoyance, or because you're just like, fuck it, they're fans just as much as I am?
Well, yeah, I mean, like if somebody comes to one of my shows and I'm doing some gig or whatever, if there's a bunch of people in there, I'm like, look, you guys hang out. I'll be right back. I'm going to go do my thing. But I don't have to have like a certain stone from the desert in my dressing room that, has had a certain type of rainwater on it, and fuck all that. Yeah.
Roll of toilet paper like George Lynch.
What?
The George Lynch roll of toilet paper.
He has his own toilet paper, huh?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jimmy. Come on.
No.
Come on, Jimmy. You already opened this can of worms.
So fucking George Lynch.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going for beer number 3. Hang on. Go ahead. Keep going. I'll be right back.
And Steve Powell is his tour manager. And Steve Powell's a big heavyweight. I'd met him before with somebody else gigantic. And they were managed by Freddie DeMann, who owned Maverick Records, Madonna's label. So there was a lot of money behind the Lynch Mob. They were going to break Lynch Mob and make them the next big rock and roll superstars, they thought. Anyway, so it's about time for George Lynch to go on stage, and the dressing rooms at the One Step Beyond there was a big dressing room and 2 smaller dressing rooms, and George, of course, was in the big dressing room, and he's playing his skeleton guitar through a little practice amp. And his tech's just sitting there waiting for him to get done. There's a stack of towels there. And all of a sudden, George stops playing. He leans over and says something into the tech's ear. And the tech's all looks at him kind of weird sideways and goes, okay, and rolls out. And I see this out. I'm talking to Steve Powell at the same time because we're catching up. And he comes out of the room and he closes the door and he goes, fucking George. And Steve Powell's all, what? And he goes, he needs a roll of toilet paper. And I'm like, that doesn't sound that odd. So I tell Steve Powell, I'll just go get a wrapped roll of toilet paper in the office. I'll be right back. He's all, yeah, cool, do that. So I run to the office, which is a short jaunt. I grab the roll of toilet paper. I come back. I unwrap the roll of toilet paper. I hand it to the tech. He's all, thanks, dude. He opens the door. He hands it to George. George just stares, like holds the toilet paper in his hand and stares at it for like, maybe a minute. Hands the roll of toilet paper to to the tech and goes, "Okay, I'm ready to go on." And I'm like, so George goes on stage, and I look at Steve Powell and I go, "So wait a minute. I got to ask you, was it one, he was drying off his hands on the roll of toilet paper instead of the stacks of towels that were sitting right next to him? Or was it he's one of those guys that, like, if he thinks of something, he needs to have that something before he goes on stage, or it's bad luck?" And he goes, "I don't know. It's a new story every day with fucking George."
Interesting.
Okay, are we still recording?
I don't know.
Okay, because I'm going to tell you something good. I'm going to tell you a funny fucking George Lynch story.
All right.
Wait, hang on.
If this jeopardizes
Let
his
her-
guest appearance at a later time, so write this.
Nice.
I love it.
How high or drunk you are, you may or may not forget that bit.
You
so.
will never work in this town again, Jimmy Arceneaux. Yeah, really threaten me with a good time. So anyway, I booked Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, which really wasn't even Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. It was him and Bobby Rondinelli and a bunch of
Hired guns.
And I told this story on Facebook, and the writer was over the top, but I was excited to do this show because I'm a huge Richie Blackmore, Deep Purple fan. I had to. I even brought a stack of records. Hopefully, he would sign them. I didn't know. I knew he was a wild card, but so it was a crazy load in. It was top-notch security because it was Richie fucking Blackmore. And all of the things on the rider were these really exclusive items that I had like 6 to 7 people going all over Northern California trying to find them, certain kind of buns and certain kind of wines and things that we just didn't have in house. And that was fine because it was Richie. It was sold out. I was like, the sky's the limit. We've got a hospitality budget, no big deal. So the night of the show, and he had this, his hospitality person was this, 4'5" Scandinavian woman that barely spoke broken English, very demanding, wanting to make sure everything was correct for Richie Blackmore. Richie Blackmore also at the same time had 2 monitor guys and 2 front of house guys because it was in case he decided to fire one that night. He had backup. True story.
Very Prince-esque.
Show's getting ready to go on, and like I usually did on a lot of the shows, I was the guy with the flashlight at the stairs leading up to the stage for the artist to make sure that they knew that, I was one of the few booking agents that was there from the top of the night to the bottom of the night. My contemporaries usually were at home eating pizza. I was always there, hands on, just to make sure that the artist was taken care of correctly. And I'm standing there on the other side of the stairs of Richie Blackmore. He's got his famous white Strat. I put Vicious Rumors on the bill. Jeff walks off stage, Jeff Thorpe, sweaty as a motherfucker with his fucking perm, and grabs Richie and starts hugging and like kissing his cheek. Oh, you're my favorite guitar. I'm like, oh, fuck, this is fucking not good. And he gets ushered out. And so we're getting ready, and the Rainbow intro is playing. And I go to lean over to say, "Hey, Richie, it's an honor to have you here. I'm a big fan." But I'm 3 words in to this. And also 3 pairs of hands that I weren't aware that were behind me, his henchmen, picked me up off of the ground, kicked open the crash bar, and physically threw me into the alleyway of the edge so bad that it split my jeans on the knee. Like I flew into the air and hit the ground. And I go to the backstage door, and it's a key entry, and I'm opening the door, but his security guys are now holding the crash bar so I can't get it. So now I'm jumping up and down like Yosemite fucking Sam, and I run to the front of the house, and I go grab my security guys, and we finally get backstage, and the band's on stage doing their thing, and they have this Swedish tour manager that's like 6'5", and I'm pointing in his chest, even though I'm like 5'10", so it's like probably up about here, and like, I'm the guy that pays you at the fucking end of the night, what the fuck, blah, 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 blah. And so he's like, "I'm sorry, man, I'm sorry." I'm like, whatever, So the guitar tech for Richie, who I'd had a conversation with earlier because he had toured with Ace Frehley after Ace did Frehley's Comet in Europe. Felt really fucking horrible. So I ended up paying the band. Several things happened. Monday morning, I get a call from the agency, and the agency, ironically, handled another band I was in called New Idol Sun on Pavement Records at the same time. And they're like, oh, hey, we understand that there was somebody. Well, first of all, Richie Blackmore and his girlfriend or wife or whatever the fuck she was, Spinal Tap, were the only people in the dressing room with a single candle and all the hospitality. So I get this call from the agency going, hey, we understand that you guys had a bootlegger fucking videotaping the show. And I'm like, hey, man, the only person videotaping the show was Richie Blackmore's boorish fucking wife. I got thrown out on my ass out of my own fucking club. I got a split in my jeans. I paid the band in full. Go fuck yourselves, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that would happen. A month later, I get an anonymous mail package of a VHS tape of 2 cameras shoot of Richie Blackmore live at the Edge that somebody had somehow bootlegged, and it sounded like they got audio from our front of house. Then a month later, the guitar tech, feeling bad, sent me a snippet of tape from Richie Blackmore's delay reel-to-reel machine that he used on stage, and a bunch of European tour buttons of Rainbow in, like, you know, the silver 3D buttons that you put on with Rainbow and the hand and the whole thing, and Ace Frehley stuff. So yeah. Good times.
Yeah, not so good times.
Physically handled by the artist. Physically.
Was that the only time that you were manhandled?
What do you mean?
However you want to take it.
You know, a couple of times, yeah. Not as much as I'd like, but I think
how'd she like it?
I think the funnier story is when Courtney Love, the Courtney Love story is the funnier one.
Oh shit!
Oh, yeah,
okay,
yeah,
please.
And she was
off the record.
It was whole with Melissa Vander, whatever her name is, from
Alf de Mel?
Yeah, from Smashing Pumpkins, and it was like a who's who of musicians. And
yeah, Alf de Mel. However, Jimmy, sorry, on or off the record? I just want to clarify.
Oh, it can be on the record. I don't give a shit about Courtney Love.
All right. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to be careful.
So,
March is loving it.
You know, their label bought like $2,500 in tickets for all of their, you know, all of their people that promoted them, Warehouse Records, Streetlight, all these people. So it was a big deal. And
sorry. I'm sorry. 1 second. Warehouse Records, is that the one that was on El Camino in Sunnyvale?
Like 10 locations in the Bay Area then, I think.
Was it Compact Disc Warehouse or just the Warehouse?
It was the Warehouse, Compact Disc. I mean, every record seller.
Okay, so you're adding. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
But Warehouse, I just recognized because I worked for them for years, and so it was a big deal. We had Courtney Love from Hole, and so the band's there at soundcheck. The baby. Kurt Cobain's baby, Frances
Bean.
was there. She was just a little, you know, like maybe 6-7 years old, being handled by a daycare person. There's no Courtney Love anywhere. The band's hella cool. Courtney Love is not going to show up until showtime, so they do their sound check and all this other stuff. So I'm backing up.
So Jimmy, was this about 98 or so?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay.
Right. Hole started to peak. Veruca Salt was their opening band.
Okay. Yeah. So it was about 98 because Frances was born August of 92. So if she was 6, yeah, just put it about 98, 99, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So
okay.
The bus is there. I'm in the alleyway. I'm waiting for fucking Courtney to show up. They're supposed to be on stage at 10:30. It's 10:45. There's no Courtney. 11 o'clock, a limo rolls up. Courtney Love gets out of the fucking limo with her handler. She's wearing this shitty white robe with matching puffy slippers that look like they've been to hell and back. And she's just hunched over, and she looks, and there's no makeup, and she looks nothing like Courtney Love. She just looks like a wreck. And she goes onto the bus, and I'm looking at the tour manager, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Now the crowd is starting to get restless. It's sold out. There's 1,100 people in the room, maybe 12. And he's all, don't worry, she's getting her makeup on. She'll be on stage in a minute. So sure enough, about 20 minutes later, she rolls out. She's got all her makeup on. She's wearing this pink chiffon dress, very short, with the boots and the whole thing. And I roll with the flashlight into the backstage area with her. We close the door, and she's just all haggard. And the weirdest thing was, the minute her tech put the guitar on her shoulders, when he put the guitar on her shoulders, all of a sudden,
Right.
Love, she was upright, and it was like it was a trigger.
Right.
And I was bizarre. I'd never experienced anything like this. And at the time, we had side fills on the stage before we flew them. And I was one of the point guys to where when people got over the barricade, I would, once they put them up on the stage, I would rush them to the backstage gate, and they would let them out the back, and they would let them back into the house. So I'm on the side of the stage. Courtney Love goes on stage and starts doing her thing. Halfway through or 3/4 of the way through the show, she decides to do her crowd surfing thing, and she goes out crowd surfing, and then she comes on stage, and this was her shtick. Oh, somebody touched my pussy. Like, not even kidding you. And all my security guys in the barricade are like, what the fuck is going on? And she's all, it was you. And she points to this guy, and the guy's raising his hand like an idiot. So they march him up on stage, and she starts drunk slapping him. You know, like, she was so wasted. Wait, backpedal. Halfway through the show, she pulls Francis out and starts kissing the baby, smearing red lipstick over the baby's face. At this time, Zach was my son, and I'm like, very daddy mode at this point. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, I'm starting to become this volcano. So she does the whole fucking out in the audience thing. She comes up stage, somebody touched my pussy. They bring the guy up, and she starts drunk slapping him. My security guys usher him down the stairs in the front of the house. And she starts playing her next song. Well, then she sits down on the subs in the barricade and starts kissing my head of security coach's head and smearing lipstick all over his head. And I looked at the manager and I went, you know what? Watch what's about to happen. And there's the Metro have a picture of this, and they titled it inappropriately. They said Jimmy is ushering Courtney Love off the stage. What really happened was I rolled out and I put my hand out, and she looks up at me. And I leaned down into her ear and I said, I want you to finish your song, and I want you to get the fuck off my stage and get the fuck out of my house.
That's right. That's right.
You said
That's right.
Microphone?
What? And I grabbed her hand and I helped her up, and she went up to the mic, and she's all, that's it. We're having a good night. Have a good night. Later, we're out of here. And she walks off stage, and the band's like, what the fuck? They had like another 15 to 20 minutes to do. The manager is losing his shit at me, and I'm like, oh, I don't give a fuck at this point. Fuck this artist. I'm done. 2 weeks later, we're on MTV because the guy that got slapped has decided to sue The Edge and Courtney Love because he was physically abused and embarrassed. We lost $30,000 in a bullshit lawsuit, but we did get MTV coverage, so that was
Well,
They say any promotion is great promotion, but oh my goodness, dude.
Wow.
Courtney Love. Really. We had the chance to book Courtney Love again, and I said, are you fucking kidding me? No.
I missed it. I like her CD, but I never got a chance to see her live.
Great fucking band.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, what a crazy fucking chick, dude. And it was funny because I went backstage after the set, and Courtney's on the bus because she's not allowed in the house now. My security is making sure she's not allowed in the house. The manager is still fucking, he wants to kill me, but he doesn't have the nuts to. And I roll back to the band, and they're laughing about the fact that I handled her because this was happening everywhere. And nobody went, fuck this bitch. She's got to go off stage.
Well, I remember you always talking about King's X and how much you really like them. But the other show that I remember that you booked that I thought afterwards you were just blown away, and I believe it was Miranda Sex Garden.
Dude. Yeah. It's crazy.
I never heard of them before. You called me up and said you gotta check this band out, and that was, I think that might have been the most excited I remember you having a discovery that you wanted to share with me personally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got two ladies playing violins with this goth new wave kind of alternative thing going on. What a great band that was. A lot of people don't know about that band. I think I may be mistaken, but I think maybe John 5 was somehow involved with that project at one point. But yeah, Miranda Sex Garden is amazing. If you've not heard them, go check them out. What a great band. And Medicine, another great band. Same thing.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. That was I didn't know what to
You
expect.
remembered Miranda's Sex Garden. That's amazing to me.
Oh.
Well, I used to talk to you pretty often because I was, doing shows in the, in the Bay Area when you were down in the peninsula, and we would sometimes share talent or, back away from an offer, depending if necessary. But
Right.
we try to stay on the same page so that the agents wouldn't beat us up. And I
Right.
remember you just being so excited about that one.
Right. And I still have the poster of that show from the Edge in my closet rolled up in a tube because it was so special to me. Yeah.
I remember we shared Marilyn Manson's first California shows together.
Yeah. Do you remember the rider, 24 chicken neck bones or a live chicken?
I didn't remember that one. I didn't get that for him. I did set up a porn shoot for him prior to our thing, and it was for Rip Magazine. It was part of Penthouse, so they made a magazine that was supposed to be like rock stars and porn stars together.
Yeah. I remember.
So Jeff Hickey, I don't know if any of you guys know Jeff Hickey. If not, I'm not going to go into that story. He brought a couple porn stars up to do a shoot with Marilyn Manson. And we had a fetish party at the club called Bondage Go-Go. So we had all the bondage gear, and we did a Mr. Manson bondage show prior to the beginning of that show. And I believe there was the night before that they performed at your club.
Yeah, and you booked my band Wonderland at one of the Bondage a Go-Go shows, and that's probably one of my favorite shows we ever did in the basement at the Trocadero.
I vaguely remember. I was having so much fun back then. I forgot a lot of it.
He's Wayne, who was one of the big Apple guys at the time, hosted a Mac OS 7.5 Sucks Less party at Bondage a Go-Go, and all of these techie guys were showing up thinking, yeah, I want to go on the rack and get blindfolded, not realizing what that meant and getting tormented by these dominatrixes. It was hysterical to watch these fucking tourists get dominated by cats. I remember one guy got racked up to an X rack, and they put the bondage, the blindfold on him, and it started out with this chick whipping him with cat o' nine tails all light, and all of a sudden she gave the cat o' nine tails to this male dominatrix.
Probably Bridget Bratt was like 7 foot tall blonde.
And also they take the fucking blindfold off of his face, and he's like, oh, what the fuck? And he can't get free, and he's being whipped by this guy. And he's got an erection.
That was a good party. We used to do 1,200 people every Wednesday night for that party.
And great DJ mixes, dude. Just fucking. And then I remembered playing with Liquid Sky in the basement one night.
Salud? Yeah,
so
good
many
stuff.
people down there. The walls were sweating, and it was like low ceiling and just Fuck.
Oh my God.
So I would say my worst writer story
Yes.
was when I was before I was booking the Trocadero, when I was an independent promoter and I was just renting the venue out and putting shows on. And I had a pretty good relationship with Andy Summers from when I was managing Testament because Andy was Testament's agent.
I love Andy
And
Summers so much.
Andy said Slayer at this point was an arena band. And Andy called me up saying, will you produce a couple of Slayer shows for me in nightclubs? They just released a album of punk rock stuff and they want to do like, down to earth, real shows, not club shows, not stadium shows. So I booked him in the Trocadero and I booked him into the Phoenix Theater. $20,000 a night guarantee. And this is a time that I'm having trouble making rent at $750.
Right.
So I got to come up with 20 grand for a deposit, and I've got to rent the PA system, and because neither venue has a PA, and I got to hire the loaders and the security. So I'm like borrowing money from everybody I know just so I can make the show happen. And here we are, show's happening. Tickets are sold out in advance. We've held some at the door. We got everything ready for them. And they show up, and the tour manager walks in to my desk, doesn't say hello to me, and he says, when's the little nightclub PA leaving the venue, and when's the PA that Slayer's playing on coming in? And we had just brought in the biggest PA that's ever been in the club for them. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, here's the rider. You have 120 minutes to get this sound system in here, or we're canceling the show on technical default. The lighting rig doesn't have OSHA-approved cables on it. It's not safe for the artist to play. So we're just going to go home and keep your deposit.
Wow.
So I sat there. I picked up the phone. I called JK Sound, said, you got this equipment? And they're like, yeah. Can you have it here within an hour and set up in another hour? And, they're like, yeah, that'll be $5,000. And I had to say, okay. And of course, and can you also have it available for tomorrow's show too, please? So now I'm already in the hole in the first minutes. And the next thing the tour manager does is he hands me a walkie-talkie with a pick mic, and he says, this is your leash. I expect you to wear it all weekend.
Oh, fuck.
And he's like, basically, it's like every 5 minutes, something like, Kerry King needs to use the bathroom and he doesn't want to walk through the crowd. We need you to get a outhouse delivered next to the tour bus.
Oh, wow.
Things like this, or the guys are bored, or send somebody to go buy them a PlayStation.
Shit.
And they're just punking me like this the entire time. And it's a show for Andy Summers. I don't want to screw this thing up. It's still a Slayer show. They don't want to add these costs to the gig costs. They want it to come out of my end. And, I don't have any money. I'm just borrowed the money to put the show on from everybody I could borrow money from. So I'm terrified that I'm not going to be able to pay people back. And day two.
But I'm sorry, one sec. Is this usually at the behest of the band or the management? I mean, are the bands being the dicks, or is it the puppet masters within that whole little dichotomy or hierarchy?
No, you don't really know where it's coming from, because you have a tour manager that's a representative of the artist, and that's the person that you interact with.
So they speak for the band. So you have no idea if it comes from one side of the house versus the other.
In the band and management, yeah.
The assumption is that it's the organization or it's the person that I'm interacting with, and that he's trying to prove himself to the band that he can get the things that they want. Or maybe the band is asking for these things, but but the tour manager is not telling them, hey, that's not realistic. Remember, they're a stadium or an arena band at this time, so it's not uncommon for them to have these type of luxuries when they're playing an arena show. Now we're asking them to play a nightclub show. I'm trying to have a better understanding of where they're coming from, but it's unrealistic inside the scope of what we're doing and what they said, what their agent told me what they wanted to do. But they're breaking me, and the tour manager's being a real dick and disrespectful to me in the process. And I'm trying to basically, make it in the industry as an independent promoter. I'm not particularly successful. I never became particularly successful, but at that point it was days like this that made me more successful because I was able to prove myself. And I got more shows came at me, but it was very difficult. And what happened is the Trocadero was sort of my home club, but then when we got up to Petaluma the next day, the band relaxed a little bit, but right away they wanted to have their lighting guy refocus the lights, and they thought that the ladder at the club was too flimsy. So I had to find a special A-frame ladder that had like an extension centerpiece for them and bring that in for them and buy that. And I had my friend's girlfriend taking their laundry to the laundromat and doing their laundry for them. And, all these hoops that they're making us run through. And, we had to bring in a drop plate barricade that wasn't on the rider.
And that's extra money.
It's all extra money. And by this point, I've talked to Andy Summers, and he's like, do whatever they want. And we're just going to add it to the show expenses before their back end. So you take your promoted profit first. So at this point, I'm kind of okay on it because it's daytime and I'm able to reach the agent and renegotiate the deal. I mentioned Jeff Weller before. I don't know if any of you know him, but he was a manager of a band called Law's Rocket when I first started working with bands. And I was a roadie for Law's Rocket. So I learned a little bit from him. He was one of the guys who wanted to be like a tough guy, and he burned a lot of bridges in the process. He was also a great teacher. And he went on to be a ring announcer and a fight manager with the early Ultimate Fighting Championships.
Yep.
And so they were over on the East Coast doing a UFC event, and he flew back to the Bay Area with a couple of the fighters. And they knew that I was doing a Slayer show, so they wanted to come up to the Slayer show. And they called me up, hey, you're in Petaluma with Slayer? Can we come up? And I'm like, of course. So I came up, and I had dinner with Jeff and the fighters, after sound check. And I told them what I'd been going through. Well, he knew the Slayer guys pretty well, and the tour manager, and he went into the dressing room with all these fighters. And I think he was joking, but he basically told them that they had made a mistake by fucking with me, and that I sent the fighters in to make things even. And they had just watched these guys, on the UFC the day before. So, like, they're seeing the guys that they were just watching who are telling them that they're going to break their legs. I don't think it was serious, but it changed the whole tone. After that, I got so many apologies from the guys, and the finances worked out. But that was my absolute worst nightmare.
That's not glorious. That's really awesome. Messed up, but awesome.
That's a great thing.
It goes on a little bit because I was also really good friends with the promoter of the Dynamo Open Air Festival, Andre Verheisen, and I would fly out to the Dynamo most years, whether I had a band that was performing or not, and I would stay at Andre's house. And that year, Machine Head was coming through, and they had the same tour manager. And the guy, walks in to do his tour manager thing into the production office, and I'm the first person he sees in the production office. And he turned white like a ghost. And then said, listen, I'm so sorry about what I did. They told me I was doing what my client asked me to do. It was wrong. I really apologize. Please don't take it out on my band.
Oh.
And of course, I had used to manage Violence, and a couple of the guys from Violence were in Machine Head. I'm obviously not taking anything out, but it was sort of a funny story. And I've bumped into this guy in production offices 2 or 3 times since then over the years. And every time it's like, oh, I really regret having done that.
Yeah.
Good.
But yeah, that was my hardest one. And man, they just about broke me. I was so tired. I almost drove the Ryder truck off the road on the way back from Petaluma that night because I was just surfacing the edge of consciousness after just being completely drained from being the whipping boy for Slayer for 2 days.
Wow.
Well, it's crazy. A lot of people don't realize that as, we're not on stage, the talent buyer, when you have problems with the band and the management and all that stuff, like that is fucking the last thing you want to have to deal with on a show.
Yeah. But, I went through that. I kept my cool. I didn't do anything uncool. Outside of the fighters thing, which I didn't really do. But then, like in the coming weeks, I started getting more calls from Andy Summers, and like he sent me Cheap Trick to play a club show, which was pretty awesome.
I got Cheap Trick through Andy too.
He sent me Social Distortion for 2 nights after that. It's like somebody throws like an impossible situation at you, and you stand up and you do it properly for them, and you don't break.
Right.
You get more opportunities. It's kind of like what I said in the beginning.
Andy Summers was one of the few agents that actually got that. I got a floodland of fucking shows from Andy Summers that I should not have gotten because I stood the test of time. I took his heavy hitters. I dealt with his fucking problem children. And Andy Summers, it's not the Police Andy Summers, by the way.
Right.
If you're listening. Andy Summers.
There is a connection to the Police.
It was ICM at the same time. I think ICM was where Andy was at first.
No, at first, there was a connection to the Police, actually. He worked for Stewart and Ian Copeland at the FBI agency.
Andy Summers was one of the few industry agents that I could actually call up and have a heart-to-heart with about what the fuck do I need to do to make my profile bigger in the business. And he was one of the few agents at the time that, even though he was a hard ass, he would actually have conversation with me and go, well, you need to do this, you need to keep Yatsik out of the equation, or you need to do this, or whatever the fuck. And it was always I learned a lot from that cat.
What happened?
Not a lot of agencies will do that.
What happened? Are they all retired? The Elliot Kahn, Andy Summers, Tony Isabella, are they all retired now, or are they still in it?
Well, I was talking to Tiffany and Chuck Billy recently, and they said that they're doing some work with Elliot Kahn currently.
Really?
So maybe he's doing some legal work for them. I don't know. Tony Isabella was most recently managing Dan the Automator, Cool Keith, and a few other DJs.
Okay, still.
And I want to remember what she's doing. She's doing some sort of charity work as well. She's still with spending time with Rachel Matthews. Rachel owns a bar in the East Bay.
Okay.
No shit. What bar?
It's over by Lake Merritt. I'll remember the name of it. They're one of my clients for my current business, but I don't always remember the names of all my clients' businesses.
Hey, what was the name of the bar for Phil?
For what?
No, sorry, this is more towards March. Sorry, Phil Demmel. Do you remember?
Oh yeah.
The name of his bar
lounge.
out in.
His bar is the Back Lounge in Dublin now.
Okay.
It's out in Dublin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Google. Thank you, Marge.
You're welcome. Yeah, we'll have to visit Rachel's bar for old time's sake.
That's his wife is running it mostly, right?
Yeah, they both are. They both are. So we'll see how this goes with all this coronavirus and quarantine and the reopening.
You asked me like a handful of people from the old school.
Yeah.
We covered Rachel. We covered Tony.
Yeah, Tony, yeah, she was always.
There was somebody else that you asked about. Oh, there was Elliot.
Andy, like all those guys.
I think Andy Summers is still an agent. I think he's at CAS now, but I'm not positive.
Cool.
Or
No,
William
I
Moore.
remember working with Tony when she was Exodus, like during the Fabulous Disaster days, and
The beginning of Zetra.
set me up with interviewing with those guys, and they were like, oh, and at the Fabulous Disaster, the Toxic Waltz. Remember the video shoot at the Fillmore?
This is really weird. I followed Exodus so closely in the Bailoff days, and then after Bailoff left the band, I definitely paid attention. I thought that they were great, but the details, I just never got into the details.
Oh yeah. No, I was out of it for a while, and then it was Rob Dukes, who I really liked, but no, he's
Rob was strong.
Yeah, Rob was awesome. I loved it, and Zet's back, and he's awesome too. So yeah, we'll have to get those guys in a future show. But yeah, now we're going. I think this is the record, 3 hours, and my phone is like dying and everything is dying. But Jimmy, happy birthday! I will.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Jimmy.
Thanks everybody.
Hey, Jimmy.
This is awesome. Thank you.
It's so good to see all you. It's crazy to see Alexis. I have not been able to chat with him in fucking 10 years maybe.
It's been quite a while.
Sure, I reached out specially just to make sure if he was available to.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So have a great day, and yeah, this was so fun. It's like I love this. So it's like Jimmy's choice. So I didn't really. I've been working on. I was telling Jimmy working on Will Carroll's interview, his story. I've been trying to type it up and publish it through Mosh Mag, and tell his story because they kind of butchered his story. Like the media outlets have butchered his story to like a one-liner, and he just, I just wasn't happy with how they portrayed Will. After his ordeal, he's not that guy. When you read that one line.
Oh, the whole Satan thing that Fox News grabbed onto and sent it out there.
Freaking bullshit. So I'm writing a new story, really good, very hard, great interview. So I'm almost done. I've been going through that whole recording this whole week, like typing stuff out, like rewinding 15 seconds. So it should be done and should be published like hopefully early next week. It's in the recording. If you guys reviewed the recording of the interview.
By the way, I wanted to mention, I just realized about an hour ago that Juniper is wearing a birthday hat behind your head, so that's kind of cool. So.
Oh yes.
I just wanted to give Death Angel some props because as long as I've been listening to heavy music, Death Angel's been out there doing their thing, and they are just consistently, I think, one of the very, very best thrash bands out of the Bay Area.
Artists working.
And they never feel burnt out. They never feel old. They always feel like so present and vital. They have emerged to be one of my two favorite Bay Area bands from the heavy bands.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed. Dude, they work their asses off. They still perform like they're fucking 16 years old when we first booked them back in the old days.
And the other band, I don't hear other people, they're huge, but in our circles, we don't hear people talking about them. I don't know how many of you guys are really familiar with a band called Neurosis.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, come on.
But I think they're the heaviest band to ever come from the Bay Area. And they're, to me, they don't get mentioned in the same circles as a lot of the other bands, but I think they're amazing.
Neurosis are fucking killer, dude. I saw them play with the Deftones and San Jose Civic the last time I saw them. I had Neurosis many times, and they fucking... I love the Deftones, but Neurosis kind of crushed them.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're very underrepresented.
They mostly don't play with other bands anymore. It's now more like an evening of Neurosis.
Right.
They take you through like a whole emotional soundscape, and they play sometimes really slow, and slow can be very heavy. It kind of like if they have their projectionist with them, to me it's a lot like when Operation Mindcrime first toured, with the video production,
Right.
where it's just a whole multimedia thing. And I don't know why it is that like they hung out at Gilman Street when everybody else was hanging out at, the Stone and the Omni.
Right.
It was like two different tribes, so there wasn't as much crossover.
Are you friends with those guys?
Yeah, I do know those guys. I actually Jason was in elementary school with me, or kindergarten even, going all the way that far back. And Dave Edwards was in school with me all the way through. As an independent promoter, I worked with them a few times, and they were huge educators. They taught me about some of the other genres that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, you're right. Underrepresented. And those.
So if any of you
Like
aren't familiar with them, check out an album called Souls at Zero.
Mm-hmm.
Put it in the background when you feel like getting a little bit stoned and getting some stuff done. It's amazing.
Yeah, we should revisit. Yeah. I've heard. Yeah, they never get mentioned. It's like you love them, and it's like all about them. But it's like when we talk about the new big three, big five, big four, like that's not even they're not even on the radar. So
they don't even care to be on the radar.
Yeah, they don't care, but we don't think about them.
They dance to their own drummer, their own tribe, and they're not trying to be part of this. They're just doing their own thing, and they're able to sell out the Fox Theater a couple nights in a row.
Yeah,
they're huge. But they're completely non-commercial. You don't see their name mentioned anywhere, but they have tribe. They have serious tribe.
Yes, they do. They're very loyal too.
Weren't they one of the first bands that ever, where you had two separate releases that you could play over each other simultaneously? I don't remember the names, but because my friend Jake was from Goshen, upstate New York, where I'm originally from, and he was like, dude, he goes, you take these two albums, he goes, most people don't know it. They're made to play together simultaneously.
Oh, really? They could be. I don't know about this.
One was like something about silver, something about flames and silver or something. I can kind of see the cover. And Jake, because my buddy used to trip really hard back in the day, and he goes, dude, most people don't know this. He goes, when you start them simultaneously, he goes, it is such an insane sonic journey. And he goes, and you play over each other. But most people don't know that.
I don't have the equipment to do that.
Yeah, like two CD players. I mean, yeah, you gotta if you ever talk to them, you gotta find out about it and see.
You have to have two CD players, and then you have to get them into the same input.
Yeah.
Or you have to have two amplifiers. I don't.
Tables.
Back in the day, it used to be two boom boxes with like six D batteries playing it simultaneously.
Well, back in the day when we were managing bands and they were a demo band, you would get one cassette tape, and that would be your master. And then you would have a dubbing deck, and you'd make in real time one cassette after another. And then you'd have to actually mail it to somebody with a bio and an 8x10 photograph.
Yeah.
And then they would get a pile of these manila envelopes. And then the next trick was, have you listened to it yet? Can I get you to listen to it?
I love it.
I mean, now it's just like, you just send somebody a link, and all the information is there.
Yeah, there's no package.
Back in the early days of this music stuff, it was not easy getting this information to the people that mattered around the planet.
Everything was those things that were stapled together like 6 or 10 pages.
Yeah.
Like growing up on the East Coast, it took me so long to find out about bands. I mean, look, I was living on the East Coast when I first found out about Soldier back in the day, and that was just because of a VHS circulating around. And my buddy worked at a bookstore, and he had his ear to the ground. He was the music man for the bookstore.
Tape traders.
That used to funnel like Dave Matullo and Powerline magazine, and all these underground zines used to come through, and that's how I got word.
Well, it's funny that you would say that, because speaking of Soldier, I mean, it's like back in the old days, we were sending out cassette tapes to Russia and Poland and Japan. We sold 5,000 copies of our cassette worldwide and 1,000 in the United States of America. Cassettes.
And that was huge. That was huge.
$3 a piece.
So this is, I know we were like in the process of saying goodbye, but this is really what we're talking about, because You were talking about something else earlier. You're talking about these video clips and how you can only keep people's attention for so long when they're watching the video clip.
Right.
And that's because we have so much information coming at us all at once now.
Yep.
Where, people can't be present and focus on one thing anymore. And before, like when I was getting into music, it was a discovery. We'd flip through the records at the record store and almost pick it based off of the album artwork because we had never even heard of the artists before. But the imagery was similar enough. And we would start to learn, like there was a guy named Rob Morfitt up in Vancouver, and he knew about what was going on in the Vancouver scene. So I'd have to keep a connection with that guy so that, if I was going to send a band up to Vancouver, I would know where to book the show, where to get the hotel, because there wasn't an internet. There was another guy with a little rock and roll heaven record store in New Jersey, and some other guy with another fanzine in San Francisco. We had Ron Quintana with Metal Mania, which I think was from Metallica.
Alexis, I was
Foundation.
I was one of the last generation that did that. I had a very analog childhood, and the internet was, it came out when I was fucking 10, but it was for rich people, whatever. I still went to Tower Records to buy my tickets, and the warehouse on El Camino and Fair Oaks, or Compact Disc Warehouse, CD Warehouse. So I was part of that last vestige of experience that you're talking about. Because today's kids, they're never going to experience it the way that I did.
Dude,
and I never going to experience the way that you guys did. But I experienced it halfway the way you guys did.
Last year, I was on tour in Halifax, and I went to some fucking.
Did you get lost?
Yeah, I did actually. But it was very cold. But anyway, I went to some
nice people though.
Very nice people, Canadians. Oh my God, I fell in love with Canada on tour, man. But anyway, I was in Halifax, and I went to some place to get food before the show, and I was hanging out, and there was some like a VJ, right? And he's playing these videos of different popular songs. And the thing that I started noticing was I'd start getting into the song as I'm sitting there, hanging out, whatever, and the song would change, and it would transfer to the next song. And what I realized is his MO, and this is what, kind of this next generation thing is, they want to hear maybe a minute to a minute and a half of a song, and then it transfers to the next song. They don't care what's going on. Like I as a music fan, I'm a listener, and I'm like, oh my God, what's the breakdown going to sound like, and what's the solo going to be? They don't care. They want like this formula.
It's fast.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's an interesting observation that I sat there watching this going, what the fuck is going on here, man? They're one song to the next, and they don't give a shit about. They want soccer stadium vocals of whoa, whoa, and then it goes on to the next one, and I was like, wow, man, it's a trip.
Basically, to me, it just seems like the industry is not willing to take that chance on the band that thinks for themselves and creates this environment that's so far off the norm that they're like, okay, we actually have to put $100,000, $200,000 to see where these guys go. They're looking for that formula that they can just make quick money off of and move on.
Dude, the formula is soccer stadium anthems and Instagram models. Done. They're in.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like looking at Instagram models, but they don't influence my music decision. They influence my, never mind.
But that's why I'm having my breasts done.
I really don't think that's really the music. I think that now, I really honestly believe that now, because people have a lot of time themselves, that things are slowing down because life is slowing down.
Right.
And I think that the longevity of long music tracks, even with the youngsters, is having a thing. Like, I just watched there's this show on YouTube, these two kids, 13 and 16 years old, that are sister and brother, that they break down 70s, 80s, and 90s music, and they're discovering this music because their dad is turning them on to it. And it's kind of fucking amazing. Like, I just watched them see Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath for the first time, and the 16-year-old daughter go, oh my God, I love his voice. Who is this? And now she's a Ronnie James Dio fan. And we all know Ronnie James Dio doesn't say anything in a minute and a half.
Right.
Wait, but Jimmy, I mean, I got a 10-year-old, dude. I mean, do you know how many times she's like, who is this? I'm like, oh yeah, this is Scorpions, baby. This is what they used to call it, butt rock.
Right.
You know, and I'd go down the whole genre, and she's like, oh, this is amazing. But like, to me as a parent, it's my way of trying to open their minds to new experiences, because they're inundated with such bullshit on the daily, and it just drives me insane.
Well, you know, I don't know if you saw, Jimmy, did you see that I did that mashup a couple of weeks ago? And it was that song called Blow by Ed Sheeran, Chris Stapleton, and Bruno Mars. And then I coupled that because I was listening to it going, fuck, man, this is about the same tempo as Tom Sawyer by Rush. I'm going to throw those two together and fucking do a mashup and play drums to it and film it. Well, I did that shit. And it's like, that is what he's talking about, is like, you know what, man, it's the old or the new and the old, but
the mashups are so fun.
They are.
I think the guy who's the best at it is Z-Trip.
I agree. Guy's a fucking brilliant genius, dude.
Everybody else who does it, they do it in the studio and they use auto-tune and stuff.
Right.
Where Z-Trip just takes the vinyl records and he actually does them working, 4 turntables simultaneously. It's amazing.
Yep. I just did one, by the way. It'll come out probably next week. I did a mashup between, and it was only because I'm just a huge Van Halen fan, but I realized the tempos were similar. I did Little Guitars and Girl Gone Bad, and it's Toshinari Toshi, who is the guitar player for the house band on Jimmy Kimmel Live. So it's he and I doing those two songs together with no vocals. It's going to be fucking killing.
Very cool. Very cool. Anyways, I brought up the difference between the fast pace of discovering stuff really quickly and scrolling from one thing to the next for a reason. And it also goes off with a lot of my younger friends. I have a lot of millennial friends. I like hanging out with young people. It keeps me from feeling old. And I tend to fool them, I think. At least they make me think that they think I'm 10 years younger. But they don't listen to records. They listen to songs. They listen to a lot of their stuff on SoundCloud, a lot of DJ stuff. It's not as much, album-orientated rock in their world. But I keep talking about and thinking about when, I was trying to break bands and we didn't have the internet. And then I think about how easy it is now. And my question for myself and for you guys was it easier then or is it easier now? Because now you have all these tools. You can record amazing albums in the home studios. You can put the information out and make it readily accessible. You have all these tools for people to discover it, like YouTube and so many different sharing sites. Music now mostly listened to on streaming sites. And you can reach the whole planet in a matter of moments, and it can just blow up.
Right.
Okay. I have a very serious answer to that, okay? One is there were bands like Teddy Swims, who Jimmy has shared, and then Wolfpack, Fearless Flyers, which is Joe Dart on bass and Nate Smith on drums, so fucking amazing, okay? Those guys like Wolfpack, Fearless Flyers, They put a bunch of videos out on social media, no label, no management, and they sold out Madison Square Garden on September 29th just by posting videos, okay? So there's that, and it can be done, okay? The other side of it is if you don't do that, yeah, well, back to the old school label kind of formula is this. You have to be, and this is inside shit, you have to be playlisted, man. You have to have somebody pay that says, if you're on Spotify or whatever type of service, it's like, oh, okay, if you like this, you'll also like that.
Right.
And you have to pay for that. So you have to pay to, like payola, you got to be part of, instead of being on the radio now, you have to be part of, hey, if you like this on iTunes, yeah, you have to be, if you like this, you'll also like that. Well, there's a big price tag on that, dude.
Yeah. So I worked mostly with heavy metal. I listened to ska and punk prior to that. And then in those days, I lost my train of thought for a half a second. We were never accepted on the radio anyway, so we had no expectation to be on the radio. It was really just an underground thing, and there was a global community developed.
Right.
And we had I think we actually had this huge advantage because we could hold people's attention through an artist's career practically.
Right.
Artists I was working with and that Jimmy was booking in the 80s and 90s are still playing today.
Right.
And I think that's because they built such a foundation where people actually stopped and were present and paid attention to what they were doing at that time. And I remember if I was wanting to discover music, if I could get my hands on one record a week,
yeah,
that was me being able to get access to as much music as I could afford.
Right.
And I think that was the case with most people. Now you get a Spotify or Tidal or one of these things, and everything's there, and you can decide whether you like an artist or not in like 5 or 6 bars, and you're just like next.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
And
Which it's not as fair.
So disposable now. So they have the tools, they have the networks, but they're fighting for attention.
Right.
You talked about that earlier. You said in the past, everybody was starved for that information because it only came through certain outlets. Now there's so much information, so many finding out about bands because of the internet. It's firing at you left and right that you got to kind of weed through the stuff to see what you like. But like you said, they're only given a couple of bars. Next. You know, before it was you couldn't get the information quick enough. Now it's like there's too much.
Too much, yeah.
You used to have to like wait outside and give a demo to somebody, and then they would, give it to their buddy who works at, I can't, 90.5, KSJS or some shit, and then it gets on the radio and so forth and so forth. But now it's just so consumable, and it takes away from the whole, I mean, at least for me, like the romanticism of it in today's, it takes away from the whole like the art journey, the art of it. It's like it's no longer a struggle for me to become who I am. It's just, however many artificial fucking inflated bullshit algorithmic likes I get, propels me to the top.
That is what it is. And what's crazy is, like, I'll give you this is real fucking world example. So I'm in this band called Dear Souls, and the guitar player is Frank Symes, who was the musical director for The Who for the last 10 years. He was the guy that was the go-between between fucking Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend, because those two don't talk.
Okay? Oh no.
Yeah, and then
last time I saw them was at Shoreline, so it's been a long time.
No, that's all good. But anyway, this guy is the musical director, so he's fucking brilliant composer, musician, genius, whatever, guitar player. And then the bass player is a guy named Francesco De Cosmo, who was the bass player for Evanescence. He played on Bring Me to Life. He won 2 Grammys with that fucking band. Okay. And then the singer is a guy named Simon Daniels, who is the reformed Autograph. He's the singer for that fucking band of turn up the radio and all that shit, right? So I have a winning combination, and we have great songs. We have a great fucking thing. I've sent our material and like video clips and all that to all of these labels that do all the Monsters of Rock and 80s bands and all this bullshit. And they go, it's just, we love the band, we love the vibe, we love the songs, we love everything. You're just not our thing because you're not like Rat or, these 80s bands, and we're different.
All right. Somebody said something about Mayhem or like one of the festivals, and I was going to say something because it was basically like a disrespect to like classical artists or some shit. Like, I was going to seg my way in, but now I'm totally going for it because fuck it. You're the second person to mention it.
Go.
Dude, Mayhem in, let's see, it's 2020 now. So I want to say it was like 2016 Mayhem Festival that had King Diamond in like the beginning of the main stage set. And I'm like, this man fucking, like, all of the bands that are in the top 3 or 4 owe him at least him or Merciful Fate in the least, some sort of ounce of respect. And yet this fucking guy who is like, he was like the Martin Bormann to the Prince of Darkness.
Right.
I mean, not to necessarily make a Nazi thing, but I don't know any other right-hand men, to use, or shadow men, but he's a good one. So he's the silent partner, and nobody knew who he was, and I was so pissed off because it wasn't even fucking sundown when he came on. And and I had tickets to the seats, but I like to go to the grass, to kind of get the vibe of the people who are younger than I and can't necessarily afford the nicer spots. But they were so blasé. They were like, "Oh, it's not blah 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 blah.
Right.
It's not a Monomarth." And I'm like, "All right, hang on." I was like, "Fuck!" Like after I said that, I was like, "Am I getting old?" I was like, "No, I'm not getting old, am I?" I was like, "Yes, I'm getting old." Fuck. Yes, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, a Monomarth is fucking badass, but I mean, King Diamond and all the Fillmore Metallica and blah 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 blah. It's like these fucking kids know nothing, and I was so pissed off. And I think it was actually the last Mayhem, so good riddance,
But I booked King Diamond many times on Merciful Fate. I'm going to say this right now. I'm going to be the devil's advocate to all you guys. I think that at the same time right now,
is he cool?
The torch holders.
He's solid. He's a mellow, cool guy.
It is our responsibility to do whatever we can to push the agenda of music. And I think, and I really believe, that now is the perfect time to get people's attention because they have nothing else to do. There are so many young YouTubers talking about metal. There are so many young YouTubers talking about bullshit hair metal bands and whatever the like. It's just a matter of us corralling our resources and helping to make the industry the way it's supposed to be. There should.
Jamie, how many of us are parents, and how many of us are raising our kids parts of metal?
Well,
I am.
All of us are. But at the same time, I think that
but those kids tell their friends and their friends and their friends, and it's like Wayne's World. It's just,
I mean, when I booked Exodus at the Avalon nightclub, probably 12 to 15 years ago, and I was shocked how many kids rolled in with Iron Maiden Killer shirts and Exodus shirts and Death Angel shirts. That audience is still out there. At the same time, we now have the privilege to remold the music industry as we see it. It's no more Live Nation. It's no more big fucking people taking.
I hope not.
You know what blew me?
I'm afraid coronavirus is going to put a lot of these venues out of business, and I'm afraid Live Nation and AEG are going to come in and scoop all these venues up. And
well, they already are. Live Nation and Ticketmaster are buying venues right now, and I think it's the biggest mistake that they're making because they're putting a lot of money into venues that are not going to open for another year and a half.
Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't want to steer this conversation in that direction. I'm having a lot of fun talking with you guys, and that particular thing about what our future looks like with coronavirus is just a really hard thing to focus on, and
Right.
not kind of where I want to go with it.
Hey, CARES Act 2020.
However,
I also wanted to comment on Jimmy, you talking about making metal available to people and sharing it with them. I 100% agree with you on that. I think, people like you who can tell these stories and um, make stuff available and also provide places for bands to play, that's key. I have an additional perspective to it. And I think of music a lot like religion and community. And I really appreciate how many young people I see out at shows. But I also remember that young people are in the process of having their own discovery of who they are. And
Right.
the young people that I know they are not as tribal as we were.
That's a good point. Yeah.
They are able to fit into many different things, that they can enjoy heavy metal, but they also might enjoy, 5 or 6 other genres of music as well. And their
Right.
identity isn't completely wrapped up into one thing, and they're experiencing their own discovery in their own way. And
but that's more of a rarity, right? I mean, Alexis, how many kids know, like in high school, they're a Bauhaus and Joy Division fan and a Marilyn Manson and Nine Inch Nails fan and a Slayer fan and so many different genres. A lot of the times, unfortunately, today's kids, they just hear or they listen to whatever bullshit their friends tell them these days. They don't necessarily question and seek out their own answers.
But
At least that's what I've noticed. Maybe my kids are fucked. I don't know.
At the same time, though,
I don't
Jeremy,
know.
I think that we as a tribe as the elders, are supposed to guide the youngsters into a new awakening and what they need to hear, whether their foundation is in metal or thrash or pop or poppy or whatever the fuck. It's our heritage to point the kids to where they need to listen to those music. And I think at the same time that I think kids are a lot more open now to musical experiences because they're sheltered in than they've ever been before. You know what I mean? It's like, what do we do to like further the progress of music? It's not the Live Nation document. It's not
So I got to totally like segue real quick because I know we're getting to the tail end of things, but Jimmy and both Alexis, you guys have industry management experience and at live shows and whatnot. I don't know about the greater audience. You guys are familiar with a band called God Stomper? They were a grindcore band.
I am not.
Okay, so if you
I've been
guys
very
were,
much out of the loop for a decade now.
oh no, these guys were popular like in like the late 90s, so
Okay.
it was basically my ex stepfather's band, kids band, so it's like I used to follow them around and they'd play shows at like the Fox Theater and I'd be hanging around, but I was just kind of curious if you guys had any stories, but if you don't know them, that's cool.
Opening the Fox Theater was my very last project in the industry.
So
What a hell of a
I'm just
project.
probably gonna wrap it up, but I think it's like the loyalty isn't there because everything's free pretty much. It's like YouTube, you get anything for free. Before, when we had $10 in our pocket, $11 to go to the record store, you had to have that loyalty. Should I buy Styx? Should I get Van Halen? I mean, you had one choice. You had $11 and you like would pick. It's just like, and then you were fiercely loyal because that's what you spent. Like, you didn't have access to everything. You had access to maybe
You'd listen to it all week, even if you didn't like it.
because you were invested. That's all you had. You had that money. And it was just like, I remember going to the record store, Record Factory, whatever, in Hayward on Mission, and was just like, my dad was like, oh, okay, I'll take you there. And then it's like looking at all the covers, and we would just look. And then even after you made that decision and bought it, we would just look at that record cover. The art was so important back then. Now it's like no one even looks
Well,
at the cover.
you might not even
Liner
know
notes,
what
thank
artists
you,
look
everything.
like.
Right? You're looking and you're reading and you're carefully and just looking at everything.
Alexis, you're right.
No, it's different.
Yeah, today it's just the voice behind the song. You don't
It's like you
have
can
no
get
idea who it
anything
looks
you
like,
want.
who it is.
You can get
Yeah.
anything you want, right? Because now I can clean. Yeah.
I have this feeling that this is going to turn into a second conversation.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up because I'm starving.
Marge, thank you so
We'll
much
save
for
it
the
for next
invitation.
week.
Jimmy, happy
Thank you
birthday.
guys.
Very
Hey,
nice.
Alexis, come back, dude. It was a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Happy birthday.
Very
Man,
nice.
you guys rule. This was great. Thank you.
So fun.
This
Thank
was
you
a
for joining
great
me.
birthday celebration for me. Thank you. I love this discussion.
Awesome. This was so fun.
Everybody,
And let's end it with another happy birthday, Jimmy.
happy birthday, buddy.
You and your cats enjoy your Purple Rain.
I'm about to check out Dear Souls. I got them queued up on my screen right here. So
Oh, thanks, dude.
So many things queued up right now.
Wait, we have a new person. Who's Pat? Pat, introduce yourself before we.
Oh, here we go, Pat.
I've been here for about a half hour.
Okay.
No,
yeah.
happy birthday, baby.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, you guys. Have a great one.